Hello, chess friends, and welcome to that of Chess channel, and welcome to the Opera Euro Rapid Chess Tournament in 2021. We're now in the semi-final stage. It's now the day one of the semi-finals, and the derby of the day. It's of course the match game between Magnus Carlsen and Maxime Vachier Lagrave. This game could be actually even the World Championship match, because Maxime Vachier Lagrave is of course leading in the candidates. In the recent match game between Magnus and MVL won the game. It was really an outstanding performance, I think, by Maxime against Magnus Carlsen in this rapid format. Let's check out now what happened. I think this game is really incredible, because basically from MVL you can expect some openings, as black MVL is playing against d4 the Grunfeld, against e4 he's playing the Nidorf. Let's see what Magnus has prepared against Maxime Vachier Lagrave's Grunfeld defense. So here d4 played by Magnus Carlsen. We have knight to f6, we have c4, g6, knight to c3, and as mentioned we have now the Grunfeld defense. C takes d5, knight to d5, still common theory, and now comes bishop to d2. And this move is a little bit passive. The main line would be the move e4, but there is of course a logical idea about this move knight to c3. Then we can recapture with the bishop controlling our d4 square. It's maybe not the most popular line, but here that's simply what Magnus decided here. After move bishop to g7, we have e4, and now you see the black is forced to play the move knight to b6. Usually black plays here the move knight to c3, but the problem is now we can protect this pawn with the bishop. We don't have to play b takes c3 like in the usual Grunfeld. So it forces now black to go knight to b6, and black cannot play now anymore, I think, the common Grunfeld move. The common Grunfeld move would be the move c5, and now this move is not possible because d takes c5 will happen, and it's simply bad because we don't have anymore here in the common Grunfeld, as we said, b takes c3, and after d takes c5 then the bishop could get very active. You could also attack the weak c3 pawn. So it's now a different line. It's I think a much better now position for white, although it's an equal game when it comes to computer evaluations. But I think Maxime Vachier Lagrave hopes for a different line when he played as black here. Here Magnus goes now bishop to e3, castling h3, preventing bishop to g4, because the whole Grunfeld defense is a battle around the square d5, d4. So when you play the move knight to f3, then you're vulnerable to some pinning ideas, and still black would try maybe to attack further the d4 pawn. So here e5, we have knight to f3. You see this h3 move now is very important, because you cannot get pinned with bishop to g4. We have e takes d4, bishop to d4, knight to c6, bishop takes g7, queen to d1, rook to d1, and after king to g7, we have now simplified line. It's I think an equal game. It's not that here Maxime Vachier Lagrave made any mistakes, but what I like here a little bit more in white's position is that the king is much closer to the center, and we have already, it's really a fast endgame here. We have reached the endgame stage very fast, I think, and now white's king is much closer to the action, I think, and that's I think a huge difference now in the game. We have bishop to b5. You have to get out with your knight somewhere, because if bishop to c6 happens, b takes c6, then we would have really 3 pawn islands, and this knight could attack them very easily with knight to d5, here knight to, for instance, maybe something like a4, a5, kicking away the knight, and then maybe knight to a4, and then cementing one of these knights on c5. So this would be also a very bad position for black. Still equal game, but you have to prove your position, of course. Knight to b4, we have here a3 by Magnus Carlsen. We have a6 counter attack, bishop to e2, knight to c6, and now knight to d4. Magnus forces a further trades of pieces, but now again I'm pointing out white's pieces, it seems to me at least, are more centralized, are more closer to the center. It's very important. Although let's not talk about computer evaluations here. Here I think from a human point of view, I think white is this tiny little edge better here. After move bishop to e6, Magnus goes now castling. Here we have rook to d1, king, rook to d4, we have rook to d4, and now king to f6, and now f4. A very important move. You see now Magnus has created him a very nice path. This king is out of game. White is now using the pawn majority here. We have here a 4 versus 3 situation. King to e7, king to f2, we have rook to d8, and now king to e3, rook takes d4, and king to d4. You see now Magnus Carlsen's king is much better in the game. We have now f6 by Maxime Vachier Lagrave. What you want to do is, of course, for both sides, is to keep your pawns on dark squares, because both players have, of course, this light square bishop. If you have many pawns on light squares, then they're vulnerable, of course, to some attacks by your opponent. Here in the game, Magnus does exactly what we talked about. He plays the move h4, and now knight to d7, and this, from this point on, I think the game is going in the wrong way for Maxime Vachier Lagrave. He should have tried again also this idea here to, instead of this move knight to d7, a5, trying to get the blockade on dark squares. Maybe then afterwards something like knight to c8, b6, maybe c5, keeping, as I said, many pawns on dark squares. This move knight to d7 was loss of tempo, because now Magnus can create here a minority attack. A minority attack is when we are attacking with 2 pawns against a pawn majority, pawn majority against these 3 pawns, and still Magnus could maybe create here a pass pawn. And I think when it comes to piece activity and space advantage, white is slightly better, and the cool part is that these 2 pawns are holding basically 3 pawns of Maxime Vachier Lagrave. So I think white is much better here, although again it's a very theoretical endgame, and this could be also a draw. So as if Maxime Vachier Lagrave plays this game correctly, this should be probably a draw. But here h6, we have now a4, g5, and now g3. Here f takes g takes f4, we have g takes f4, and now knight to b8. And this is now a new mistake here by Maxime Vachier Lagrave. Here, instead of this move knight to b8, you should play knight to f8. The problem is now that this knight is really out of game. You want, of course, to play the move knight to c6, but again, you're not competing here on with this move. You're not attacking anything. At least I think we could have tried knight to f8 and maybe knight to g6, attacking one of these weak pawns. Here after move knight to f8, knight to b8, Magnus goes now simply knight to d5, and it was a great move. It's really the suggested move. Here Maxime Vachier Lagrave allowed this knight move, knight to d5 after bishop to d5, e takes d5. And the point about this idea of Magnus Carlsen, we have placed now a pawn on light squares, which you should avoid. As we said, you want to keep your pawns on dark squares, but now there is a clear path for the king. And what could you do? What could you make here? If you try maybe to create here some kind of an attack, you see, if you try b6, then you always weaken here your pawn on a6. I think here a good idea could be maybe to play something like a5. If you pass through, then the king will come closer here to c5. So again, white will have a very nice king. If you don't react here after move a5, here if you play a5, if you don't react till this a6 pawn is a really long-term weakness. So here after the move b6, which was played in the game, here Magnus locks the position with the move h5. We have now a5, and now after b takes a5, b takes a5, and now again you see the king comes very active into the game. The knight is out of game. This is really incredible. The knight is trapped, and that was only because of this move knight to b8. Here Maxime Vachier Lagrave made a huge blunder. After move f5, bishop to b5, cutting off really this knight's activity. This knight is out of game. Here king to d8 was played, and now king to d4. Here black is in sort of a Zugzwang. Whatever black does, it's a losing. If you try to activate your knight, we can simply take bishop takes d7, king to d7, and again white is much closer to the center and will take out this pawn, and it's a theoretical win. So after the move king to d4, in this position, Maxime Vachier Lagrave resigned. Incredible stuff. It's a lead now for Magnus Carlsen. We'll see now what will happen. It's a good start for the world champion after this dramatic match game against Daniil Dubov. I think that's exactly what Magnus Carlsen needed, a nice win without too much pressure. We'll see what will happen. Maxime Vachier Lagrave is, of course, a great player and a sharp attacker. He'll find also ways how to get back into this match game. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting lines in the Grunfeld defense. If you want to see more games from this tournament, check out my coverage so far. Here's the link. And if you want to see also some other content, you can also check out my commented chess games, the best chess games of all time series, and my commented chess games played by computers. Here are also the links. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.